VCs will give you advice. Pick Salesforce because you will eventually need Salesforce. I think it's horrible advice, terrible advice. Person company, you don't need Salesforce, don't get Salesforce. Just code something over the weekend. You will probably be fine for like next year.
Yeah, honestly, it's like pick Salesforce when you've earned the right to pick Salesforce. Maybe
Yes,
is a better.
Well,
Hey, and welcome to this episode of Build versus Buy, a 30-minute conversation with product and engineering leaders about situations during their career where they've had to decide whether to build or buy. If you'd like to be a guest, reach out to me at Mang-Git@useanvil.com. That's Manggit@useanvil.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe on YouTube or leave us a rating/review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Enjoy this episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Build vs. Buy podcast. I'm your host, Mang-Git Ng, founder and CEO of Anvil, the fastest way to build software for paperwork. And today as my guest, I have Danil. He is a founding engineer at Shepherd and has a track record of building applications in Silicon Valley. Welcome to the show, Danil.
thank you, Mang. Really appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I'm going to pause real quick. Do you want to rewind and say thank you, Mang-Git?
How do you pronounce it again? Sorry.
Mang-Git. Yeah.
Mang-Git?
Yep, Mang-Git. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
My bad.
No worries. I should. Pineapple. Okay. I'll start and then I'll lead into you. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you, Mang-Git. Appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. As I mentioned at the top of this introduction, you are at Shepherd. Would love to learn a little bit more about what you do at Shepherd and maybe talk a little bit high level about what you've done in the past prior to Shepherd.
Of course. Gosh, I don't really think of my life as before Shepherd. I've been at Shepherd for the past 4.5, close to 5 years. And in startup years, 1 year is like 5 years in me. So I don't really remember life before Shepherd, but I've been with the company for multiple years now. Got to see us go from 0 to 1, getting to market with our initial commercial insurance offering for construction with excess liability. And then saw us grow into property with builder's risk, and now expanding into the energy renewables, which I'm really excited about. Going to help enable construction of more data centers that are powering training and inference of LLMs.
Awesome. And maybe just for everybody listening, can you tell me a little bit more about what Shepherd does? And you mentioned commercial lines of insurance, but yeah, maybe for the uninitiated, what does Shepherd do?
Yeah, absolutely. I would assume, maybe we made this podcast, we assume nothing. We assume the listener doesn't know anything about MGAs, InsurTechs.
I barely know anything, and I've been working with InsurTechs for a couple of years now. Yeah, let's assume the listener has no idea.
Of course, yeah. The commercial insurance MGA. What an MGA stands for is a management general agent, which effectively translates into us being an insurance provider. However, we're not an insurance carrier. We don't have large legal departments. We don't have a massive balance sheet. We aren't actually on the hook for the claims, but we have what we call underwriting authority. We underwrite on behalf of a proper insurance carrier that has all the legal filings. And what we focus on is underwriting, selecting the best risk. In commercial insurance in particular, we are in a market where the winner takes best, not the winner takes all. That's why the rigor of underwriting judgment and building technology around that is what separates us apart and puts us in the top percentile of insurance providers. And with who we work with insurance brokers. We work with Aon, Marsh, all large retail brokerages out there, and we serve their needs to help clients like Skanska and other major construction companies to help them with their insurance needs.
Got it. So maybe to summarize there, the carriers take on the risk and on their P&L, essentially, balance sheet, but you guys are delegated the authority by carriers that you work with to determine if the risk is good or not.
Exactly, yes. And we'll service the risk, we'll help the client understand their insurance policy. One of our biggest value props to the client and the broker is our Shepherd Savings program, which is simply, Shepherd was founded on an idea, on a thesis that commercial construction companies that are using technology to power their operations, they're inherently at better risk. So if you are using a project management tool like Procore or maybe OpenSpace, like an AI camera, you're walking around with a job site or using IoT devices from Samsara, we believe they are better risks. Hence, they should be treated better by their insurance carrier. And currently, there is no offering in the market that would reward that. So at Shepherd, we reward construction companies that are building with technology. We reward them with better price, better premium, better coverage. Currently, we think it's a win-win.
Got it. Interesting. So I think like maybe a corollary that's more relatable to the general populace is like Lemonade offering very discounted insurance to Tesla drivers, where the Tesla telemetry allows Lemonade to like have a better ability to account for the risk of a Tesla driver. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
At Tesla FSD, Tesla owning their also insurance arm and being able to get insurance for your Tesla within the app. That's so much experience. That is the kind of experience and treatment we give to our clients and brokers.
Awesome. I think there's a lot more we can dig into on the insurance side. I know it's a very big and complex industry, but maybe there is a specific area we can dive into in terms of this build versus buy context that we're talking about on this podcast. Maybe to start, when Shepherd first started, you guys had a decision to make, right? You had a very big decision to make in terms of how you were going to build out your own own technology for Shepherd. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that and ease into the build versus buy decision.
Yep. Happy to. Early on in my career, I've learned the framework of one-way door versus two-way door decisions. If the listener doesn't know about that, they can look it up online. But the very first one-way door decision I had to make alongside Mo, our co-founder and CTO, in the first like month or two, close to 2 months at Shepherd, was whether to build or buy a policy admin system. A PAS or a policy admin system is the heartbeat of any insurance organization, of any insurance provider, whether you're a carrier or an MGA. It is where you track all your policies, is where you underwrite submissions, is where you store loss data. It is where you'll go to file a claim or record a claim and reference back the original data that you have underwritten. And we have, frankly, took a look at the entire market. There are many large players like Guidewire, Duck Creek. There are some contractors of the world that are API first and will allow you to build on top of their API design. And we've also talked to all the founders in the space. They've all told us like, don't build anything, just buy one off the shelf. And like I would say, one of the things that we've noticed that was a big detractor from buying was the fact that the way they charge is not a SaaS fee. These are actually not SaaS platforms. They will charge a percentage of your book of business. So as you're growing, you will end up having a permanent tax on your business, and it can be up to like 2%. Like some folks will charge between 0.5 to like 2% in terms of their fee of your entire book of business, which can be crazy. Imagine if you're $1 billion, you finally made it, you're $1 billion insurtech with $1 billion in premium, like you're paying 2%, like 20 million of that to the policy system provider. That was definitely like, oh wow, we would have to rent it gave us a sense that we have to rent our foundation. It didn't make sense. So we talked to a lot of founders in the insurtech space. They've all said, don't build anything related to that.
Why did they say don't build anything? That seemed to be the pervasive kind of advice that you were getting to other insurtech from other insurtech founders.
It's a good question. It's a really good question because a lot of the insurtech founders that we've talked at the time were focused on the personal lines like Lemonade. Shepherd is anything unlike Lemonade, right? Shepherd is focusing on commercial, high complex, high hazard industries, underwriting very seriously. And the complexity on the commercial side is maybe 10x, maybe actually I would say 100x more complex than personal insurance. And because of that, the folks who are building personal MGAs, personal insurance MGAs, they don't face the same complexity. And the game there is more around distribution and marketing. It's a marketing war. And that's where the focus and attention of the tech team has to go. While on our side, we have a very little to no budget for marketing, actually. Our distribution is through our amazing broker partners. The complexity is, again, selecting the best risk, rewarding the best contractors with the best price and treatment and coverage. It is not on buying billboards. Maybe one day we'll do that, but not right now.
That's how you know you made it. You have a billboard on the 101, right? No, that's an interesting insight, right? Like resources are allocated differently at different insurtechs, especially personal lines of insurance. the resources are allocated more consumer facing, more front end versus for
Our
you
front office,
guys,
we're
front
back
office.
heavy, yes.
And for you, having the accurate model of risk is way more valuable than, I guess there's just probably not that many commercial insurance policies written every year versus a personal lines of insurance.
There are actually a lot more than I anticipated. I also had the dream, but there is
Yeah.
more construction business out there. And of course, it's a big part of our GDP. But you've hit on a really good point, which is commercial insurance MGAs like Shepherd or Coalition. They are back-end heavy, while Lemonades of the world, they are front-end heavy, which also translates into the premium, right? For Lemonade, you are paying, let's say, $7 a month, maybe up to $20 a month max. So per year is what, maybe like $100 to $150 per year. In commercial world, you're paying hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, very frequently millions of dollars per year in insurance cost. Hence, the risks and the fees are much higher. Hence, making the call is as important as ever.
Got it. And then also, if there is a claim against that insurance policy, it's much more painful for the carrier or for the MGA in this case to pay out on that. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are starting out, you're building a MGA. You definitely need a policy admin system because that is the core of any MGA firm, any insurance firm. You need this policy admin system to manage your policies. And it sounds like a very complex product, right? Like it's like the core banking system for a bank. It's the main thing that runs your business.
It's the rail, right?
It's the rail. So tell me a little bit more about the thought process as you guys went down this journey, talking to other co-founders and exploring the existing market out there. What were the dimensions on which you evaluated the existing policy systems versus like building it yourself?
Yeah. It's a question. The journey from when I was simple but hard when it comes to finding all the vendors, getting on the calls with them. We've spent close to a month and a half interviewing every company out there that offered PAS. We even taking a look at a solo guy, like a solopreneur in Vermont who built his own PAS in the basement of his mom's house. Maybe we can acquire him to decide about you. We've looked at the big dogs like Guidewire, Squadron. And frankly, we were not very impressed with what they offered for the price. The price per value, it wasn't there. We looked at it and it's just crud. If we're having calls today in this era of AI, it would be a lot more evident. But at the time, pre-GPT, pre-AI, it wasn't as evident because execution was still expensive with hiring engineers. Ultimately, the call came down to a very like first principle thinking, which is we are building a very large startup here. Like we're going to be building a multi-billion-dollar unicorn. We'll go beyond construction. We'll go into energy. We'll go into many other verticals adjacent to that. We cannot afford to rent our foundation. We have to own. And that will be a competitive advantage that will allow for the flywheel going forward for many years to come and decades to come.
And why, I guess maybe just spell it out here, why can't you rent it? What are the reasons you don't want to rent your foundation and you want to build it? Yeah.
You have all those great questions.
I'm just spitballing here. I just latch onto a word that you say and then I just dig in.
Yeah. The simple one was like just math. Having a 2% tax up 2% forever is like crazy.
But presumably you can negotiate that down the larger you become,
You could,
right?
but even like having any type of stuff like percentage level tax in your P&L, it's a pretty big, oh wow. Again, one way to a decision.
Yeah.
The other one was, and there's actually a bigger one, the most important one was the flexibility. We knew that the flexibility we'll get at the end of the day to build more things on top of our abstractions instead of having been bound by the abstractions that some other PM made at a different company will inevitably slow us down. We won't be able to move as fast if we were renting our foundation. If we are owning foundation, we can move faster. And it wasn't evident at the time we had no business, right? With no revenue, but it was a very forward-looking decision that turned out to be right. Now, Shepherd has over $100 million in GWP. Shepherd is dripping in all the good directions. And I'm seeing like having the front row seat here. I'm seeing how it creates a flywheel where net new employees who are joining Shepherd, they're having a very easy time onboarding. The new underwriters are productive day one, not day 600 as a large insurance company. And it's all because they are using the same system. when we're spinning up new departments like actuarial, claims, compliance, etc., all important functions to a sustainable insurance operation, they're very productive immediately because they're using the same system. Everyone is working out of the same operating system. It's like a Bloomberg terminal for commercial insurance.
Yeah.
It evolved from being a PS to like a Bloomberg terminal for commercial insurance. Everyone is using the same shortcuts. Everyone is using the same modules of the platform. And it is creating a flywheel for us to build new insurance offerings, scale our organization, scale our back end office a lot more faster with a greater velocity.
It's interesting you mentioned on the same platform as a very powerful kind of like lever in this case. So I think in my experience, having used, played with, explored legacy software systems, a lot of times different features are bolted on over time. They're built, like, you buy the core system, then you got to buy this module, you got to buy that module, and they're not really that well interconnected.
It's because the reason why that is because the product that you're using will always mirror the org design that build the product. That's why Wi-Fi on the web is different than on the phone.
Yeah.
Really.
That's actually, maybe that's something to dig into. So what is the org design at Shepherd that resulted in this decision to build this operating system for Shepherd, this PS system for Shepherd?
Early on, the org design was very flat, very lean. Now we do have more structure, which is very.
You did everything. You and the founders did everything.
Yeah, it's fine. Sometimes we joke like Ali, my other founding engineer, my best friend from college, and myself, like we can be underwriters. Sometimes people joke. Now the org design, like it is I would say a very lean and mean machine that I would say mirror any other traditional insurance organization. We have compliance, we have claims, we have actuarial, we have all the right and important departments that any growing, thriving insurtech needs to have. But at the same time, what we don't have is we don't have underwriting systems. We don't have UAs. We don't have folks who are just doing mechanical work. We don't offshore labor to India or other cheap markets. We use technology and AI to automate as much of the back office, just grunt work as possible and enable the underwriting team to focus on the higher leverage, higher cognitive tasks. Frankly, enable them to spend time on the most human things they can possibly do, which is being out there and meeting clients, going to construction sites, doing customer visits, meeting new brokers, developing deeper relationships with existing brokers, which will yield more business. Something that AI can do and probably won't be able to do for a while. But all of the nitty-gritty details, they will be automated, if not partially, but might be entirely by AI.
So the hypothesis back in the day seems to be, like back in the day being founding, seemed to be that we can use software to build, I think it was a pretty common hypothesis, build a system that eliminates a lot of this grunt work. So like you said, this work that a UA would do. And so you built the foundation of that in your existing PAS system, policy admin system. But looking forward, do you think that, especially as AI is able to just automate a lot of that, like Claude Kilrick can just look at it and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this for you and automate a lot of that. But like, is there still a advantage owning that PAS system when a lot of people are probably just trying to layer on AI agents into existing solutions that are out there today?
It all comes down to velocity and how quickly you want to move. If history is any lesson, like looking at Amazon, looking at Tesla, like the great companies of our country, is they've wanted to verticalize and they have eventually verticalized their entire stack. The more you depend on other parties, on other infrastructure, on things that you don't own, the more burden your overall system is. That is why the actual product of Tesla is not the car, it's actually the factory. It's the factory that builds other factories. It's the factory that builds the cars. Same with Amazon, right? The actual product is not the website that you can get stuff quickly, right? It's the entire logistics, 2-day shipping operation. If you ask your mom, like, or our moms, if we could get stuff in 2-day delivery, she would call us crazy, right? Back in the day. And I think the lesson there is you want to own as much as possible vertically if you want to create a big, great company. It's just a matter of when. It's a matter of sequence. If like some of the, like we already are seeing a lot of limitations when we try to bolt on some of our internal capabilities onto any system that is external. I'll give you like a cheesy example, like Salesforce. It was one of our biggest engineering mistakes, which was we've integrated Salesforce into our organization without proper headcount allocation, without proper long-term maintenance plan. And it's been a pain. It's been a pain since we added Salesforce. Yeah.
So I guess like maybe two thoughts here, right? Certainly the famous quote attributed to Jeff Bezos, which is that focus on the things that make your beer taste better.
Yep.
And so what you said was like build the whole stack, which seems in tension with that. And maybe there's some clarification there. And two, you mentioned implementation of Salesforce at your organization. Obviously, I think anybody that has implemented Salesforce before knows how much of a lift that can be. But is it enough of a lift to push you to now build your own CRM system? I guess internally, does that make sense? Is it something that you should be thinking about building every tool you use at Shepherd?
Yeah. I think if something can directly contributes towards making your customers happier and giving them better experience, then yes, it warrants it. Honestly, if we go back, if we would have to build a CRM or integrate a CRM today, I would either build in-house, most likely I would build in-house and make it part of our OS, because go-to-market for insurance providers is very complicated. It is very different than a normal kind of sales cycle. It's a lot more like depth first and then breadth first search. Or I would consider vendors outside of Salesforce. May have been overkill for a company of our stage back in the day when we're like 25 folks. The VCs will give you advice, pick Salesforce because you will eventually need Salesforce. I think it's a horrible advice, terrible advice. Don't take it.
Agreed. I think it's like
Person company, you don't need Salesforce, don't get Salesforce. Just cloud call something over the weekend. You will probably be fine for like next year.
Yeah, honestly, it's like pick Salesforce when you've earned the right to pick Salesforce. Maybe
Yes,
is a better
phrase. But going back to build versus buy again, if CRM and if your go-to-market motion is complicated, like really complicated and bespoke, yeah, consider building it in-house. Consider building it in-house as part of your overarching platform or your Bloomberg terminal. The reason why Bloomberg terminal is so sticky is because you can sell your wallets on there. You can make a friend there through they have their own Facebook internally through Bloomberg terminal. It's a truly like all-in-one system that folks have learned over decades, and now it's irreplaceable. It's so sticky that it's like, you might say it's AI proof.
Actually, so curious, if you're building all this tooling for yourself and clearly it has value for Shepherd, does it, and you mentioned like bespoke go-to-market motion, which is like what you think you have described Shepherd's go-to-market motion as. Does that necessarily mean that your platform is not useful to others? Would Shepherd ever sell your policy admin system to another commercial insurance player, or is this really like your guarded secret sauce that you're never going to share with anybody else?
Yeah, you have so many great questions. I'm dazzled. The answer is simple. Yeah, you're right. Shepherd's platform, Shepherd's Bloomberg terminal for commercial insurance is one of the most impressive secret sauce of Shepherd. Everything we built over the past 4 years, it's going to be very valuable for any large insurance carrier. Right now, there is no plan to sell it as a SaaS offering. It was a major competitive advantage against Chubb, Travelers, many other big legacy insurance carriers. We're able to underwrite a deal in like less than 24 hours compared to competition where they take 2 to 3 weeks to get a quote to the broker. And our roadmap is so large and so vast that it doesn't make sense to create a different business unit, try to sell. Eventually, when we're like a multi-billion company, yeah, we should revisit that maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So it sounds like in retrospect, you would have made that same decision to build the PAS system. Yeah. Anything you maybe like missteps along the way? I'm sure there's a lot of mistakes along the way that you probably made, but like anything that jumps out at you, we're like, oh.
Yeah. I would say overall, 0 regrets about building instead of buying. Very happy with that. Honestly, buying would be a wrong decision. I'll phrase it that way. The thing that I would do differently if I could go back in time, given the hindsight, is simply index 10 times, 100 times more on understanding the full picture, end-to-end, understanding the entire taxonomy of the commercial insurance market, at least trying to understand as much as you possibly can. And now with ChatGPT and Claude, it's so easy. You have no excuse to not know end to end. Yeah, I would invest a lot more into documenting and understanding all of the moving pieces and all the primitives behind building a bill of terminal for commercial insurance. Now it's more important than ever because your blocker nowadays to go to market is not engineering hiring. It is not execution. It is knowing how to prompt, knowing the right prompt, knowing the requirements, understanding how the market actually operates. More or less, yeah, being a domain expert, or at least having a domain expert who can guide you so you can build a great prompt. And if you have a bad prompt, you'll build the wrong thing.
You don't even know you have a bad prompt until later on when something breaks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Claude will be like, "You're so smart. That's a great prompt." Awesome. Thank you for sharing that journey of building your PAS system at Shepherd. And for those who are unaware of how big of an undertaking that is, that it is a very big undertaking. Pretty much, as Danil said at the beginning, is the general advice from other people in the industry is don't build it yourself. And you guys clearly have taken that advice and said, to hell with it, and we're going to do it ourselves. And to great success, I would say. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Maybe to wrap up, I do always like to ask our guests a couple of fun questions. So to start, tell myself something that you've been working on, whether it's personal or professional, that you're really excited about.
Over the past, I would say 12 months or so, we've seen Cloud Code explode and become a really big part of our workflow. And honestly, month over month, all the engineers are seeing how it's getting better and better. You're seeing AI being able to review pull requests pretty well. You're now observing that if AI can write a code, AI can review the code. Now the bottleneck is humans. It's actually approving the PR and merging the PR. Something that I'm really excited to build is, and I'm working that already on Shepherd, is automating the engineering workflow end to end. You have the right product requirements. We should be able to go from a good requirement, a well-sentenced ticket in linear, to code in the main branch without any human intervention, without even nice on that. And it is not people are using this new term harness engineering, but it's a lot more complicated than people think because you have to really integrate and build your own system in-house because the way your engineering processes work, it's different by company. It differs by company. Some folks use GitHub, some folks use GitLab. Some folks use this agent to review PR. Some other folks use a different agent. Some folks use Slack. Some folks use Teams. It's integrating your end-to-end workflow and codifying your engineering workflow can be a massive unlock because you will be able to produce a lot, not just produce, but produce and ship a lot more code than you possibly can have.
Got it. So what will you do after that? Become a PM?
I think we might all become PM. We might all ultimately, as execution of engineering context era, the judgment on the outcomes will become very important. Yeah, we're definitely in for I want to say AI revolution, not AI evolution. We're going to see a disruption very similar to what happened during the Industrial Revolution.
It certainly feels like something is happening out there. There's a big shift happening right now. And you and I, being players in the technology industry, see it first, it feels like.
Yeah. And many other industries, insurance included, they are completely unaware. They still think of AI as an assistant. It's something that will help us improve efficiency by 30%. But in reality, now, February 24, 2026, we're seeing AI end-to-end automate engineering workflows. If you can switch it all together, not just produce code, not just assist you, but end-to-end do your job. And that is both exciting and terrifying. We're in for crazy times.
For sure. Awesome. And then maybe second question here is share a product that you purchased recently that you would either buy again because you loved it or you would never buy again.
That's a good one.
Maybe something that your agent purchased for you, because I'm sure you have an agent end-to-end running your life now, right?
I wouldn't purchase Salesforce again. I know we've touched on that. Yeah. I would either build or get a more startup version of that. I honestly have a very cheesy answer, which is I will not purchase Cursor. That is my hot take. I would not Cursor again. Even though they came up with a really cool feature just today that takes me to go back. But Cursor originally was built with a thesis as an assistant in mind, which means human eye is looking at the code. I mean, sidebar, you have your agent running, but the paradigm has shifted. Humans should not be reading code. It's getting so good where human eye in the code is an anti-pattern. We're just trusting AI because it's very good. So yeah, Cloud Code over Cursor or Codex over Cursor.
Got it. Awesome. You heard it first from Danil, and we'll see how much of these predictions play true in the next year or two. Hopefully it takes a little bit longer for our own sakes. But
Absolutely. You're right.
Danil, thank you for coming on the show today. And I really appreciate all of your insights and stories around building your own PAS system at Shepherd.
Thank you, Mang-Git. Really appreciate having me on.
Thank you for listening. If you found this show valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or here on YouTube. We'd love if you could leave us a rating and/or a review, as that helps others find this podcast. See you next time.